Let me ask you something honest. You are eating what you believe is a healthy diet. Salads, fruits, whole grains. Maybe you have cut out junk food. Maybe you are drinking more water, taking supplements, reading labels. You are doing the things people are supposed to do. And yet something is still not right. The energy is not there the way it used to be. The weight is not moving the way it should. The inflammation, the fatigue, the brain fog. It is still present, quiet, but persistent, like a problem that refuses to be solved no matter what you try. I want to suggest something that might be uncomfortable to hear. The problem may not be that you are eating unhealthily. The problem may be that you are eating in a way that never allows your body to do what it was designed to do. There is a difference, and understanding that difference changed everything we thought we knew about aging, about disease, and about what the human body is actually capable of when you stop working against it. In 2016, a Japanese scientist named Yoshinori Ohsumi won the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine. He did not win it for discovering a new drug. He did not win it for inventing a treatment or developing a supplement or identifying a superfood. He won it for discovering something that had been happening inside your body your entire life without you knowing it. He called it autophagy. The word comes from the Greek, auto, self, phagy, eating, self-eating. And before you recoil from that phrase, let me tell you what it actually means, because it is one of the most important things you will ever understand about your own biology. Autophagy is your body's internal cleaning and repair system. When it activates, your cells do something extraordinary. They identify their own damaged components, their own dysfunctional proteins, their own cellular debris that has accumulated over time, and they break it down and recycle it. They clean house. They rebuild. They remove exactly the kind of accumulated damage that, when left unaddressed, drives the aging process, drives chronic inflammation, drives the conditions that become diagnoses. Your body has been able to do this your entire life. The question is whether you have been giving it the conditions it needs to do it. Here is the problem. Autophagy requires a specific trigger. It does not run constantly. It activates under specific metabolic conditions, primarily when insulin is low, when the body is not in a state of constant digestion and storage, when the cellular environment shifts from one of abundance to one of mild, controlled scarcity. In other words, it activates when you are not eating. And most people in the modern world are almost never not eating. 3 meals a day, snacks between meals, a handful of something while watching television, coffee with sugar in the morning, something small before bed. The body never fully finishes processing one intake before the next one arrives. Insulin is elevated for the majority of the waking hours. The metabolic environment never creates the conditions that trigger the repair system. The cleaning crew never gets called in, because the building is always occupied. Think of your body like a restaurant kitchen. During service hours, the kitchen is producing constantly. Every station is active, every surface is being used. Food is going out, dishes are coming in. The work never stops. This is necessary. This is what the kitchen is for. But at the end of the night, when service ends, something equally important happens. The cleaning crew arrives. They go to every surface that was too busy to clean during service. They scrub, they sanitize, they remove what built up during the day. They prepare the kitchen to function at its best tomorrow. Now imagine that service never ends. Imagine that the kitchen runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, without closing. Dishes pile up. Surfaces accumulate residue. The cleaning crew waits outside but is never called in because the kitchen is always in service mode. This is what chronic eating, constant insulin elevation, never entering a fasted metabolic state, does to the body. The repair system waits. The damage accumulates. And slowly, over years and decades, the accumulation of what was never cleaned becomes the foundation of chronic disease. Now let me tell you about the populations that live longest. You have probably heard of them. The blue zones, Okinawa in Japan, Sardinia in Italy, Ikaria in Greece, Nicoya in Costa Rica, Loma Linda in California. Populations where people regularly live past 90, past 100, with sharp minds and functional bodies and rates of chronic disease that are a fraction of what the rest of the developed world experiences. Researchers have studied these populations for decades. They have looked at diet, at genetics, at environment, at social structure, at every variable they could measure, and they have found consistent patterns. But here is the thing that most longevity content leaves out. It is not just what these populations eat, it is how they eat. The Okinawans practice something called hara hachibu, a cultural principle of eating until you are 80% full and then stopping. Not because they are disciplined in a painful way, but because the principle is embedded in their culture so deeply that it becomes unconscious habit. They eat less at every meal than their counterparts in the Western world. They create, without calling it this, regular metabolic space between intake and intake. The Sardinians eat their largest meal in the middle of the day and a very light meal in the evening, and they do not eat again until morning. Their eating window, without anyone having designed it as an intervention, is naturally compressed. The Ikarians fast regularly, not as a diet strategy, but as a religious and cultural practice embedded in the Greek Orthodox tradition. They have been doing it for centuries. Their bodies have been regularly entering the metabolic state that triggers autophagy for their entire lives. None of these populations invented longevity strategies. They inherited cultural eating patterns that happened without anyone understanding the cellular mechanisms to create the conditions under which the body repairs itself. The Nobel Prize science did not invent anything new. It explained why what these populations were already doing actually worked. Now, let me talk about insulin, because this is the variable that almost everything else connects to, and it is the variable that most health conversations fail to address clearly enough. Insulin is a hormone. Its job is to regulate blood sugar. When you eat carbohydrates, your blood glucose rises, insulin is released, and it signals cells to absorb that glucose for energy or store it for later. This is a necessary and elegant system. Without it, you die. The problem is what happens when the system is chronically overactivated. When insulin is elevated most of the time, when every meal spikes it, when snacks between meals keep it elevated, when the body never gets a meaningful period of low insulin, several things happen simultaneously. Fat cells stop releasing stored fat for energy. The body, receiving the constant signal that energy is abundant, has no reason to access its reserves. Weight loss becomes extremely difficult not because of willpower, but because of hormonal signaling. The instruction to burn stored fat is simply not being sent. At the same time, chronically elevated insulin drives inflammation. It accelerates arterial aging. It impairs the brain's ability to regulate mood and cognition. It disrupts sleep architecture. It creates the metabolic environment in which chronic disease develops not as a sudden event, but as the slow, decades-long accumulation of damage that was never adequately repaired. And it suppresses autophagy, because autophagy requires low insulin. As long as insulin is elevated, the repair system stays offline. The irony is that many of the foods people associate with healthy eating, whole grain bread, fruit juice, brown rice, low-fat yogurt with added fruit, granola, produce significant insulin spikes. Not as extreme as candy or soda, but significant enough, eaten frequently enough, to keep insulin elevated through most of the day. Healthy intentions. Metabolically counterproductive outcomes. So what actually works? Not a specific food. Not a supplement. Not a superfood that someone on the internet told you will add 10 years to your life. The research does not support any of those individual claims in any meaningful way. What the research supports, the Nobel Prize research, the Blue Zone research, the metabolic science that has accumulated over the last 30 years, is a set of principles. Simple, applicable, not requiring anything expensive or extreme. The first principle is eating within a compressed window of time, not necessarily extreme fasting, not multi-day water fasts. Simply allowing a period of each day, ideally 14 to 16 hours, which for most people means finishing dinner at 7 in the evening and not eating until 9 or 10 the next morning. during which insulin drops low enough and stays low long enough that autophagy activates. The cleaning crew gets called in. The repair work happens. This is not starvation. You are eating the same amount of food in a shorter window. The body does not go into starvation mode in 14 hours. It goes into repair mode. These are different things. The second principle is managing insulin response within your eating window. This means prioritizing protein. It means prioritizing vegetables with fiber that slows glucose absorption. It means including healthy fats that provide sustained energy without the insulin spike of refined carbohydrates. It means being strategic about when and how much starch and sugar enters the system, rather than eliminating them entirely or eating them without consideration. The third principle, and this is the one that the research most consistently supports across the longest-lived populations, is eating less overall, not dramatically less, not in a way that creates obsession or anxiety around food, but the blue zone populations eat less than their Western counterparts at every meal. The caloric restriction research in animal models is unambiguous. Animals fed 80% of their normal caloric intake consistently live longer, with less disease, than animals fed ad libitum. The mechanism is at least partially through autophagy. Less input, more repair time, longer functional lifespan. Hara Hachibu, 80% full. Stop there. Here is what this looks like practically. Not theoretically, practically in a real day. You wake up, you have black coffee or tea if you drink it. No sugar, no milk, because both raise insulin. You are not hungry yet, which is normal when your body has adapted to a compressed eating window because the hunger hormone ghrelin follows a learned schedule and it adjusts to when you actually eat. You are in the tail end of your fasting window. Your autophagy process has been running through the night and is still running. Around 9 or 10, you break your fast. Not with cereal or toast or a fruit smoothie, all of which spike insulin immediately. You eat protein, eggs, meat, fish, something that raises insulin modestly and provides building blocks for every system in your body. You add fat, you add fiber. You feel satisfied in a different way than you feel satisfied after a carbohydrate-heavy breakfast. Steadier, longer lasting, without the energy crash 2 hours later that follows a glucose spike. Your eating window is open. You eat again at lunch if you are hungry. You eat dinner. You eat real food, not diet food, not low-fat processed substitutes, but actual food prepared simply. And then around 7, the window closes. That is the basic structure. Everything else, which vegetables, which proteins, which fats, how much in what combinations, matters less than this fundamental architecture. Get the architecture right, and everything else improves. I want to address something directly, because I know it is the question in the back of your mind. Is this sustainable? Can a person actually live this way long-term without it becoming an obsession, without it taking over the mental space that should be occupied by other things? Yes, because the populations that do it best do not experience it as restriction. They experience it as rhythm, as structure, as the simple, inherited pattern of their culture that they have followed without thinking about it their entire lives. The goal is not to count every hour and every calorie with anxious precision. The goal is to build a rhythm that your body adapts to, because the body adapts to everything, and once it adapts to this, it stops sending the urgent hunger signals that currently make the pattern feel difficult. And what you are left with is a body that is repairing itself daily, that is running its insulin at appropriate levels, that is activating the cellular machinery that the Nobel Prize research showed us is the foundation of longevity. This is not a diet. Diets end. This is an understanding of how the body actually works and the decision to work with it rather than against it. The people living past 100 in Okinawa and Sardinia and Ikaria are not doing something exotic. They are doing something very old. They are eating the way human bodies evolved to be fed, with rhythm, with space, with periods of rest between periods of intake. We have, in the last 100 years of industrial food production and the normalization of constant eating, departed from that rhythm almost entirely. The Nobel Prize did not invent the solution. It explained why going back to the rhythm works. Your body right now, regardless of your age, regardless of how long you have been eating in the way that suppresses its repair systems, retains the capacity to activate autophagy. The cellular machinery is there. It was there the day you were born, and it is there today. It does not require a drug to activate. It does not require an expensive protocol. It requires the conditions: low insulin, adequate time, a body that is not perpetually processing the next input, that allow it to run. The longest-lived people on Earth did not discover a secret. They preserved a rhythm that most of the modern world has lost. You can restore that rhythm. Not dramatically, not overnight, not with suffering, just with understanding. And the understanding starts with one simple question. The next time you are about to eat something, is my body actually asking for this right now? Or has it simply not been given enough uninterrupted time to do the work it was built to do? Sit with that question. Your body already knows the answer. Sonnet 4.6.